Guys, how's it going? And welcome to video 1 of this new series for McCall's. So I'm doing today McCall's 7625, which is a brand new pattern that they just released for early fall. If you guys saw my intro video, you guys know what this video is all about, but if you're just barely stumbling in on this, I'm essentially going to be breaking down the fitting process so you guys can kind of see a little bit of like some best practices and just kind of ways to approach it. I am only using myself as a fit model. Everybody who does this pattern and who's going to be fitting it is going to have different fitting issues, different hurdles, different things to learn, all that sort of stuff. But what I've found useful for people who are subscribers to this channel and for anyone who's stumbling on these videos is watching the fitting process on a real person and kind of what the thought process is and going from step by step by step really kind of helps to demystify the process. Of course, the things that I do are not going to be applying to everybody, but it'll help kind of get you in the frame of mind to be able to approach it and to not be intimidated by the process and just to like have an example of how to go through the process step by step. As I said before, this is going to be just using my measurements and my body as a fit model. So let's go ahead and get started. Cool, so first things first, as you can see, I am trying on the muslin of this McCall's pattern right off the bat. I know a few people commented on my last video about me pronouncing it weird. Sorry, I apologize. But not really. This is kind of how I talk. I learned English and Spanish at the same time. Anyway, okay. So I am taking out everything I need to take out for my petite waist like length. If you can see there, I have some extra paper in that just because I did chop off the skirt part of it just for the fitting purposes. So if you're doing these sort of crazy measurements that I'm doing, go ahead and just chop off part of the skirt in order for you to do your all your muslins. It also kind of helps so that you can see where that skirt feature is going to sit on your body. So here I am finishing up the rest of the petite line measurements and stuff. There's actually a total of 3 lines on the waist to take out that length. There's a regular lengthen and shorten line. There is the petite line. So I just went ahead and went from the shorten line straight up to the petite line, which worked out for me. So here I am adding the seam allowances on the center back pieces, just because I want to go ahead and do my sway back adjustments. So I add the seam allowances on the center back, and I also put the seam allowance into the back side panel. This is so that I can actually go ahead and just stick the two together and do that sway back at the same time. Now you have to imagine that there's a bunch of princess seams going on this, so you have to make sure that if you're doing adjustments that are going to go from one piece to another this way, that you are joining those pieces before you do those measurements. So right now I'm making sure that I match those pieces up correctly to one another. So I decided to use the waistline as the guide. So I measured up the waist on the center back and then added that waistline to the back side piece, and then you can see here I'm adding in some extra lines, and I'm going to be adding that exact same line on the back side panel as well, just so that I know everything's going to be lining up. So when I go ahead and actually match them up and tape them together just along that line for my sway back adjustment, everything is looking good. So I'm taping it, and now I'm actually doing a sway back with those 2 pieces taped together as if they were one. So in my case, I went ahead and did a 1/2 inch sway back. Looking back on it, I probably could have done a little bit more of a sway back, but 1/2 inch is my standard, so that's what I decided to go with. I went and cut it, overlapped it, and then I unstuck those 2 pieces together, or took them apart so that then I can go ahead and just use them separately. I redrafted the darts at this point because the dart did shift a little bit in that sway back, and you can see me here putting in my marker lines of where the new dart is going to be. So essentially the dart's in the same spot, but I did shift it slightly. I think it ended up being about 1/2 inch shifted. Now, if you do a sway back, you always do have to make sure that your center back line is the way that it was before. In my case, what I did was just kind of measure out how much of a deviation on my grain line there was, and then that's how much I added. Now, this center back piece is slightly curved, so that's kind of why I use the French curves there. I do have a video about how to use a French curve, so definitely check that out if you don't know how to use that tool. But that piece looks pretty good, and then these center back looks pretty good, so we're good to go. Now this is muslin after doing the shortening, which looks decent, but I went ahead and took apart the princess seam in the front so I could figure out how much of a full bust adjustment to add. You can see the black line there. That is my center front on the pattern. So I went ahead and split those two pieces apart, figured out where that center line is on the pattern in relation to my body, and then measured the front panel to my full bust point, because the bust point itself was actually at the correct spot, so I knew I didn't have to add on that side panel, but I did have to add in the front. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that here. Now, if you realize that your bust point is pointing at a different place, you do have to do those changes before, you know, before adding anything. So you do have to make sure to put that bust point in the correct spot. I would definitely recommend checking out my Gertie Sew Along videos for a butterick pattern. I'll link that here so you can see what those steps are. But essentially I'm repeating that process in this particular video. So I went ahead and drew a line straight up the pattern piece, split all the way to the shoulder, taped down the front. I put in some scrap pieces of paper there and continued taping like crazy. And then at that point, because I am adding width to that front center piece, I am just making sure that things rotate out perfectly, and so that when I'm measuring out from that center panel, I'm getting that distance added. Now, for me, I did have to add a width of about 1.5 inches, so that's about how much I spread it apart. Go ahead and straighten out the center front and the bottom of it. Tape, tape, tape everywhere. And then at this point, once all that's said and done, you can go ahead and grab your French curve and then make sure every seam is all nice and curvy, like it curves to your body. So you can see there, I'm making sure that edge looks good. And as I'm kind of moving things around, I'm also going to walk the center front seam to the front side panel. Now, I also have a video about that if you've never done this before, but you just have to remember that any changes that you do on a princess seam, you do have to walk those pattern pieces constantly to make sure that everything lines up. Like, the last thing you want to do is sew pieces of your pattern together and realize that they're not matching up anywhere along a curve. So it's vital that you do this step. As you can see there, I'm making sure that the notches are lining up, making sure that the bust point is lining up. You can see there I'm re-adding a brand new notch because my walking was not correct. But once that's good, I went ahead and did my final muslin. Now, this looks pretty good. I mean, the skirt itself is going to pull down that back a little bit, so I'm not too worried about that. But it looks good. It feels good across the chest. I do feel quite comfortable wearing the sleeve. Now, in the front darts, I do take a little tuck out, and I'll go ahead and put a video description below so you guys can learn how to do that as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful for your own fitting process. As I said at the beginning, everybody's fitting process is different, and the different things that you have to do to make it work for you are going to vary from person to person. So definitely don't let it intimidate you. If you guys are brand new to the channel, definitely check out my playlist of other tutorial videos in this vein. I go through and I just break down the process in a similar way in all of these videos. If you like the video, thumbs up, subscribe, all the places, all the stuff, and definitely check out the Patreon, which I just launched last week. It's going really well so far, guys, and I'm really excited. I'm opening up the voting for my Patreon video of the month for this month. So go ahead and subscribe if you guys are interested in voting on that and supporting the channel. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.